Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic 2019 so far. Mine has been immensely chaotic, and I honestly haven't had that much time alone, which is why for the month of February, I unfortunately haven't really gotten much read, which is completely different from my January, if you watch my previous video, because I read about 37 books in January, I think, and for February, let's see, I read 6. And at the moment, I'm also working on 12 Years a Slave and listening to the audiobook as well, but I don't know if I'll have that done by the end of February or not. We'll see. But I wanted to go over the books that I read for February and do a kind of reading wrap up, a very small reading wrap up. I started off the month with The Last Black Unicorn by Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany Haddish is a comedian, and I've kind of discovered, almost as a rule, that when I read books by comedians, they're almost always problematic in some way or another. I think the only exception that I found was maybe Ellen DeGeneres, but she tries her best not to be offensive and to use humor that is intentionally kind of inoffensive, I guess is the way to put it. Um, but almost any other instance I can think of where I've read a book by a comedian that is meant to be a comedy, it's immensely problematic. And this one, it was also problematic, but it was also immensely interesting. Haddish talks about her life and um, growing up as a foster child and how she grew and basically clawed her way to the top. She worked her ass off. And it's an immensely entertaining read. Um, I'm not necessarily going to vouch for or against it because there is some problematic language, there's some ableist concepts, and a little bit of homophobia, and there's some stuff sprinkled in where I would totally understand if you don't really want to read it or don't support it. 100% understand that, but can also understand if you find it entertaining in itself and don't consider the concepts mentioned, the problematic concept mentioned, to be part of the author's ideals, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. But either way, it was a really interesting read. That's about all I can really say for or against it. The next book that I read is Blue is the Warmest Color by Julie March. Or no, not March. I keep doing that. It's Moreau. Blue is the warmest color. If you see though, it looks like March almost at a glance. And it's such a pretty cover. This is a graphic novel, and it is basically about a teenager growing up in the 90s, discovering that she is attracted to women and that she's potentially bisexual. And she's in extreme denial about it for the longest time, and then finally gives in. And that's all I'm really going to say about it. But it's a really interesting read. It's a very sad read. It's worth checking out if you have the time. You happen to find a copy of it laying around. There's also a movie made out of it, which I haven't seen yet. I've heard it's good though. The next book that I read, you may have heard of it, is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And first of all, can we talk about this cover? Because hot damn, it's beautiful. I love this purple. But the book itself, I probably can't say anything new that you haven't heard before about it. It was very dry in some parts of it, which I can totally understand. But it was still interesting to read. And, I don't know. I would recommend reading it at least once in your life to be able to see what the hype is about and to understand what people are talking about. I don't have much more to add about that. I mean, you've probably heard a million different things about Frankenstein. I'm not going to have anything new or profound to say about a book that's been around as long as this one has. Check it out if you haven't yet, because it's always good to look back on the classics and see how they've influenced the literature of today. This next one I meant to start reading after I read The Hate You Give, but wasn't able to find a copy of it for the longest time. And that is Dear Martin by Nick Stone, which is reflecting really badly. There we go. And I would say that this is almost The Hate You Give for middle schoolers. Almost. It's not entirely the same story, but it has very similar themes, very similar topics. That being said, it's still a very different book. I enjoyed reading it for the most part, but as I said, it is written for middle schoolers, and that is very obvious in the way that the characters are written, because sometimes they can be very naive, particularly about race. Like, oh, I can't believe that someone would act in this way. Really? Are you sure? Because it's pretty obvious. But no, overall, it's a good book. It's another one that I would definitely recommend everyone read at some point in their lives, but just be warned ahead of time that it is written for middle schoolers. One other thing that I didn't like about it, well, I wouldn't even say I didn't like about it, I was slightly aggravated by, was the fact that she changed writing styles several different times throughout the book, and I don't think it was necessary, and I don't think that it was always done well or effectively in a way that advanced the storyline, if that makes sense. Like, she'll just have normal narration for a little while, normal prose, then she'll switch to a journal entry, which I totally understand. It's called Dear Martin for a reason. He basically ends up arrested because he's helping his girlfriend get home and she is drunk. And a police officer assumes that he is trying to take advantage of her, mainly based on how he's dressed. He puts on a hoodie over his school uniform, and the police officer automatically assumes he's up to no good. And this is one of the biggest things he's had to face in his life. And he's on debate club and decides that he's going to do a project where he writes the series of letters to Martin Luther King Jr. And basically starts to analyze his life and try to act in a way which Martin Luther King Jr. would. Which is a very interesting concept. And sorry, I know I'm talking a lot more about this one than I am all of the other ones. But this one's a little more fresh in my mind, and I think this one had the most meat in it. But yeah, there's that. And then there are portions where it's almost written as a screenplay, which I thought was really odd, and I could understand if there was a reason for it, but it really didn't feel like there was a reason for it. And there were other sections which were written as news segments, which that I understand. It was mainly the screenplay segments that kind of annoyed me or aggravated me. But for the most part, it is a good read and definitely worth checking out. Literally or figuratively, I got mine from the library. Have to take it back in tomorrow. I'm going to have to renew a lot of my books because I didn't get many of them read at all. But yeah, don't have much to say about that one that you probably haven't heard either, but I feel like it doesn't get as much love as The Hate You Give, and I won't put it on that level. I'm not going to say it is as good as The Hate You Give, but it is still quite good, quite influential, covers a lot of interesting topics, and still worth looking into. And it's also shorter. I think it's about 210 pages. Something like that. It's immensely short. It will take no time at all to read, especially if you're a fast reader, like I generally am. The next one that I've read is Fruits Basket. Nothing profound there. I was just rereading it because I found a copy at Goodwill. It's an adorable little manga. not much to talk about there. I didn't learn anything new that I didn't know before. If you like manga, though, I definitely recommend reading it. Or if you don't like manga or don't know if you do, I still recommend looking into it. That's Fruits Basket. Has a cover like that. And it's adorable. It's by Natsuki Takaya. See, I can word. And it's basically some of the characters are based around the horoscope. Yes, it's interesting. Also, sorry that I kind of look like crap tonight. I haven't had time alone really for the last month due to extenuating circumstances that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, this is the first night that I've actually had alone, had time to breathe, where I was like, you know what? I'm going to film a video. And I'm not going to waste time putting on makeup and dressing up, because by the time I do all that, I won't be alone anymore. And I feel like eventually I'm going to have to get over that. Like, I'm going to have to learn how to record with other people around, but I'm not there right now. I'm just not self-confident enough. I don't know how anyone else does it. If you record with your family around, or your husband around, or your children around, whatever you do, how do you do it? Tell me, please. Tell me your secrets. I need to know. Okay, but that brings me to the last book that I read this month, which was Dumplin', which I'm sure you've heard of, and that's by Julie Murphy, and I've seen the movie for this one. I saw the movie first, and this was another occasion where I thought that the book and the movie were pretty much just as good as one another. If you haven't read or seen either, it basically revolves around a plus-size teenage girl who has grown up with a mother who does beauty pageants, was a winner of a beauty pageant, and hosts them each year, and kind of feels like she's not good enough for her own mother, almost, and ends up joining a beauty pageant in protest. And it is the cutest book, and it also will make you cry so many times. So will the movie. Oh my god, can we talk about the movie? I was so happy to see the movie. There was a moment in the movie where they were filming the main character kind of from the side and behind her, and it showed her arms in a certain light, and I had to take a minute, and I started tearing up, because I was like, those are my arms. My arms look exactly like that. And I don't know how to express the fact that I've never had that moment before. Ever. Because representation for fat people is so terrible. And this is the first time where I've been able to see myself in a character which is portrayed positively, who isn't then pushed to, lose weight and become thin in order to be accepted. It's the entire message of the story and of the movie is to basically love yourself. That's the message, And see, I'm getting choked up now, but it meant a lot to me. And if you do not support representation, then let me fucking tell you, it matters. It fucking matters. Because I could probably name on one hand the positive plus-size influences that I saw as a child, and most of them were seen as some kind of stereotype. Let's see, I had Miss Piggy, Suki from Gilmore Girls, and that was as a teenager. And honestly, I can't think of any more. So, name a few if you got them. But this is the first one where I saw her, I watched her, and felt like I actually connected with her and was able to see myself on the screen. And then it felt the same way reading the book. It just feels nice to feel represented and feel seen. And we need more of that. We definitely need more of that. But this is the end of my reading wrap-up for February. I'm hoping March will be better. I'm just going to renew the books that I checked out this month and keep on trying to read them because I majorly failed this month, but oh well. Hopefully I'll get back into the groove next month. I think I just really wiped myself out in January by reading all of those books, and a lot of those were audiobooks too, so that was probably a big part of it, because I was trying to read physical books this time, and when you don't have time alone, you don't necessarily have that much time to read either. But anyway, I hope that you guys are having a great month. Let me know what you've read. Let me know what you're going to read. Let me know how your year's going. What are your goals for 2019? Where are you headed? Did you enjoy this video? Probably not, but it's okay, because I'm trying. Anyway, you guys have a great night, and bye-bye.